Hey, what's going on, guys? So EA has rolled out a new update. The biggest changes are spread across the world's game, clubs, career mode, and then the usual mix of visual and stability updates. So even if it does not sound wild at first, there is actually a decent amount going on under the hood. And the first thing that stands out is the tournament side of the game, because that is where EA seems to have put a lot of the attention. They added a tournament tree widget to the Office Hub once you hit the knockout stages, which is one of those little additions that sounds simple, but makes the whole flow way easier to follow. Instead of bouncing around menus trying to remember where you are in the bracket, you get a clearer view right where you need it. They also let you jump straight into the FC Hub from the Tournament Hub, and even during active tournaments, you can check your objectives and keep track of your progress. That matters more than people might think, because a lot of players like that constant sense of where they stand, what they still need to do, and whether they are actually moving forward or just collecting results without much context. On top of that, EA added tournament stage information to the next fixture screen and refreshed parts of the C-Tree overview interface, so the whole presentation is a bit more organized than before. A lot of the fixes in this area are really about cutting down on weird presentation issues that can break the mood of a tournament run. For example, penalty shootout matches could sometimes show the wrong aggregate score, which is the kind of thing that immediately makes you stop and wonder whether the game is messing with you. They also fixed a case where the completed stage was not shown properly beneath the trophy after finishing the competition, which sounds tiny until you actually care about the sense of progression and want the game to celebrate the run the right way. Then there were text alignment fixes too, which might not be the sort of thing anyone posts clips about, but that those misaligned labels and awkward layouts absolutely add up when you are in menus a lot. Small visual bugs like that do not always sound serious, but they are exactly the kind of thing that makes a game feel just a bit rough around the edges if they hang around too long. Clubs got a couple of targeted fixes as well, and these are the sort of things that will matter a lot more if that is the mode you live in. One issue could pop up when creating a new Goalkeeper Pro and throw up a message saying it failed to create your virtual pro, which is a terrible message to see when all you are trying to do is get into a session and start playing. EA also fixed cases where AI facility boosts were being incorrectly applied to player controlled pros, which is the kind of bug that quietly messes with balance and leaves people wondering why their player feels off in ways they cannot quite explain. That is why fixes like this are actually a bigger deal than they look at a glance. If the game is handing out the wrong boosts, even in a limited number of cases, it can distort progression and make the mode feel inconsistent. So yeah, not the loudest part of the patch, but definitely the kind of repair clubs players will care about. Career mode got a pretty welcome mix of changes too, especially if you spend a lot of time in long saves and live start points. EA re-enabled national team selection for manager career live start points beginning in May 2026, which is the sort of adjustment that sounds very specific because it is. But for career mode players, that specificity is the whole point. It opens things back up for a certain slice of saves that would otherwise feel locked off in a weird way. Beyond that, there were several fixes aimed at making the management side behave more cleanly. One issue involved viewing the International Cup final from the calendar, where the game could pull up the third place match instead and even remove the final standings tab, which is exactly the kind of menu bug that makes a save feel less polished than it should. EA also fixed the department filter resetting after changing a key role filter in scout instructions, and they sorted out cases where certain attacker positions disappeared when specific key role filters were active. If you have spent any time fine-tuning scouting or squad building, you know how irritating that kind of thing is because it breaks the rhythm of making decisions. And then there are the Youth Academy and presentation fixes, which are a nice reminder that career mode is not just about matches, it's about the little details that sell the fantasy. Scout reports were showing placeholder min-max values instead of the proper attribute ranges, which is a serious immersion killer if you are trying to evaluate prospects and plan ahead. EA also fixed social media posts that could display the wrong kit, plus a placeholder image for the current team section on the player stats screen during the Men's International Cup. There was also a correction for the See More stats screen during the Men's International competition, where the wrong information could show up. None of that is glamorous, but it all feeds into the feeling that the mode is keeping up with your decisions instead of tripping over itself. When career mode is clean, you do not really notice the UI. When it is messy, you notice everything. That is why these fixes matter more than they seem to on a quick read. The general presentation side of the game also got a pretty broad refresh, and this is where EA seems to have touched a little bit of everything. They updated selected kits, starheads, hairstyles, 2D portraits, badges, stadiums, boots, commentary, crowds, tifos, and text elements. So there is a lot of visual and audio polish folded into this patch. That does not mean every player will immediately spot every change because some of it is subtle and some of it is only going to be obvious if you are already familiar with how a certain player, stadium, or match presentation used to look. But over time, those kinds of updates help the game feel more current and more complete. On top of the content refresh, EA fixed various stability issues, which is always one of those lines people read quickly and move on from, even though it is often the part that saves you from random crashes, soft locks, or weird menu behavior. They also fixed restore default in display settings, which is the sort of thing you never want to discover is broken after you have already messed with your screen options. There were also a couple of settings related fixes that are very easy to overlook but important once you actually run into them. EA fixed an issue where the competitive gameplay type setting could be changed to authentic during kickoff matches, which suggests there was some unwanted inconsistency in how the game was letting players set up their matches. They also fixed multiple cases of incorrect or placeholder text, and that alone is one of those fixes that makes the whole game feel a bit more trustworthy. When menus say the wrong thing or show filler text, it gives off this unfinished feeling, even if the actual gameplay is fine. That is why patches like this matter in a different way than a giant feature drop. They are not trying to sell you on a new fantasy. They are trying to make the fantasy already in the game work better, look better, and interrupt you less. And for a sports game, that kind of polish goes a long way because people spend so much time inside menus, squad screens, scouting tabs, and all those little layers around the matches themselves. So when you put the whole thing together, this patch feels like one of those updates that is more about tightening the experience than changing the identity of the game. The tournament tools make the world's game easier to follow. Clubs gets cleaner creator and boost behavior. Career mode gets some valuable fixes and a useful return of national team selection for those live start point saves. And the presentation side gets a broad refresh across visuals, audio, and text. It is the kind of patch that does not need a giant spotlight because its value shows up in the moments that used to annoy you and now just do not happen as often. And that is usually the best sign that an update actually did its job.